Tag TV and Tag Radio. Be seen and heard by both technology users and technology producers throughout the state of Georgia and around the world. Low cost, big benefits, powerhouse online branded video and audio has arrived. Tag TV, Tag Radio, there's a lot more to know. This edition of Tech Talk is brought to you by GlobalSpeak.com, new media consultants, corporate video and audio communications, video and audio production and distribution, live and virtual event production. Tag TV and Tag Radio is a service of GlobalSpeak.com, creatively delivering powerful marketing, video, and audio solutions. Prior keynote speakers have included the CTO and CIOs of Intel, Microsoft, and Walmart, senior executives at Cisco, and other nationally recognized business leaders. Now entering its 21st year, the High-Tech Ministries High-Tech Prayer Breakfast. 1,600 of Atlanta's technology movers and shakers once again fill the Cobb Galleria to capacity. This year, to hear the highly successful IT executive who built this company and sold it to GE Healthcare for $600 million as he candidly talks about his astonishing career and amazing success, as well as the real-life impact of his faith as lived out in the workplace. Greetings, everyone. It's Tuesday, September 11, 2012, and this is Tech Talk with Technology Association of Georgia President Tino Mantella. I'm your guest host, Frank Baia. Up to the Tech Talk, Ron A. Andrews, President, Medical Sciences, Life Technologies Corporation. On the cutting edge of DNA research, Ronnie's entire life has been focused on finding a cure for breast cancer and on improving health care for everyone. As president of the Medical Sciences Division of Life Technologies' $4 billion in revenue genomic and proteomic tools, prior to joining the company, he was CEO of Clarient Incorporated. Ronnie grew Clarient from a failed medical instrument company to over $120 million in revenue before selling it to GE Healthcare in 2010 for $587 million. The High-Tech Prayer Breakfast is the marquee annual event of High-Tech Ministries. Its mission to introduce people in the Atlanta technology community to a life-changing relationship with Jesus Christ. As this year's keynote speaker, Ronnie's presentation will be electrifying and energetic with stories of success, science, and faith that will change your life. Interested in attending the October 4th event? Contact Todd Sorensen, President at todd@hightechministries.org. Why might you want to be at the breakfast? Take a moment to hear Ronnie's powerful message as the Tech Talk gets inspired by the words and works of healthcare IT's leading executive and Prayer Breakfast 2012 keynote speaker, Ronnie Andrews, President, Medical Services, Life Technologies Corporation. Ronnie, welcome to Tech Talk.
Thank you very much, Frank. Glad to be here.
Well, it's obviously a pretty exciting next couple of weeks. You're going to be entering into the 21st year of the High-Tech Prayer Breakfast. That's the marquee annual event of the High-Tech Ministries. We're going to want to talk a little bit about that before we finish our interview today. But let's start, I guess, as they always say at the beginning, it's always a good place. And that's tell us a little bit about the Atlanta connection and how you became involved with cancer research and biotechnology.
Yeah, listen, Atlanta was my home, and I still call it home. I grew up there and was raised in the South Side near Jonesboro, and grew up in an amazing family from the South, and was raised by a grandmother who unfortunately contracted breast cancer when I was a youngster. But I'm the oldest of all the grandkids, and for all the listeners out there. Out here in California, people don't really understand this as much, but down south they'll get it, that, the oldest grandchild, there's a patriarchal expectation of that child. And so my grandmother at a very early age inspired me to think about, my life as someone who could potentially could do something about cancer. And she always tell me, Ronnie, you're smart enough to do something about it. And I guess I was dumb enough to believe her because her inspiration and watching her suffer motivated me to move, into the sciences and education and college, and beyond that has really inspired me to stay focused in the world of cancer diagnostics as I've sort of lived out my career and followed God's calling in it.
I think the key word is inspiring, not only obviously to you, but to anyone that knows your story, and now even the insight to the personal story that's behind your career. And let's go into a little bit about healthcare-related technology. Obviously, it's a fast-growing and fast-changing field. There's no debate about that. But from your perspective, how is life sciences approaching the business?
Yeah, the Human Genome Project was an amazing accomplishment for the world of science, and having been a part of that, it was interesting going in that we had assumed that would give us all the answers we needed to some of the most complex questions in medicine. And funny, on the back end of that, after we spent 7 or 8 years and over $3 billion doing one human genome, we got on the other side of that in 2002, 2003, and began to realize that we really had more questions than we had answers. And the last 10 years since then have really been a nice convergence of questions that we uncovered and seeking those answers, and then identifying tools that could help us find those answers. And today, Life Technologies and the Medical Sciences Division, we sit here as stewards of some pretty amazing capabilities and technologies that have come out of the Human Genome Project. We could not do what we do today 10 years ago because the IT advancements have been made in the last 10 years, the technology advancements around sequencing genes, and then the understanding of the proteins produced from those genes and our ability to quantify that. None of those technologies existed 10 years ago, nor did the therapeutics that have come out of the Human Genome Project that are really targeted at very specific communication pathways within the cell that really communicate bad DNA code and ultimately cause cancer. So the interesting thing of where we sit today is that there's an amazing convergence of investment and therapeutic around oncology. There's a huge investment and outcome, very fruitful outcome of technology development, and you combine all that with the amazing access we have to information today via social media, and you have sort of this perfect positive storm around taking these deadly complex diseases and move them towards a disease that could potentially be chronic using the amazing capabilities that we have. And so that's our approach. It's really to begin with the problem space that the physician and patient encounter every day. What are the key unmet questions that physician has? And then back into the technologies we have at our disposal to help answer those questions and make them real-time and create a real sense of understanding of diseases like cancer so that physicians can treat it in a way, hopefully, that gives that patient hope, and we ultimately will find a cure.
One of the opportunities that we have here at Tech Talk is the chance to really gain insights from individuals from a whole different series of verticals. And obviously, life sciences and the healthcare industry is a major player now as far as technology is concerned. But in a recent conversation, and just in hearing you talk about some of the stuff that you're encountering now, Ronnie, it brings to mind an interview that we had with an individual that was in a similar field that was talking about work that they had done with HIV and some of the actual molecules that were discovered as part of the cure, or at least addressing some of the cure for that disease. And I guess really what I was going to share with you is the fact that he talked about how when he woke up in the morning, he could actually see the smiling faces of the people that he had actually helped to maybe bring another day of survival. But at night, he would face the consequences of going to bed knowing that there were still people that he hadn't helped. And so the challenge on one side is that it isn't just about discovery or pioneering or the actual profession. You're about saving lives. That's an awful powerful thing to be able to be given as a gift from God. That is a great thing.
It is, and honestly, for me, it's a calling, right? My grandmother instilled that passion, and thank God it's a calling and not a job, because it has forced me, even in times of uncertainty around the science, uncertainty around where we're going with some of the conclusions from the science, that we keep pressing on. And
still more to do. I mean, that's
that God would reveal the right answer, and that we would make progress, and He's delivered in a big way for us.
Now, a lot of our listeners are obviously interested. Many of them are startup companies. Many of them are people that have built their own enterprises and operations over the years. Certainly, many of them are chief operating officers, even chief executive officers of corporations. I think we'd be remiss not talking about the turnaround at Clariant. Obviously, leading a business from $6 million in annual sales to $120 million, and then selling it off to GE for nearly $600 million. Isn't it another whole amazing story within itself? Share that a little bit about that with us.
Well, that's a total God thing, if you ask me. I mean, my passion for breast cancer had led me to the pinnacle of molecular diagnostics. I was very blessed and fortunate to be head of the largest patent estate around gene sequencing at a company called Roche Molecular. We were spending hundreds of millions of dollars a year in R&D around both HIV and cancer. And the company, as a division of Roche Pharmaceutical, decided to back out of cancer for a while. And much to my chagrin, that was really, my passion in life. And so I found myself really still wanting, and God leaving me sort of thirsty for that area. And opened the door for me to take over a bankrupt little company, but had a profound technology that could do mapping of proteins in cells, which could tell physicians where these proteins were and tell them and lead them to the right drugs for these women with certain types of breast cancer. And I remember from my grandmother's experience that we'd have to drive her all the way to Emory to see a doc whose name she couldn't pronounce and who really, at the time, was not very personable. And all the way home, I'd hear, why can't Dr. Sams treat me? And, of course, Dr. Sams and the family of, physicians there in Fayetteville are, still around and still taking very good care of their patients in the community. And it hit me that the only difference between Dr. Sams and the guys at Emory was access to this very rich diagnostic data. And so we decided to throw caution to the wind, get on our knees, and just basically pray for God to be glorified and that we would give this business over to God. Our whole passion was to take these high-end technologies, use the internet, take the cellular imaging device that we took over as a bankrupt company, image these breast cancer tissues, and push the images into the hands of community pathologists, educate them on how to use it so that these patients could be treated locally, and create an environment where patients from rural communities around the world did not have to go to an academic center to get academic-level treatment for breast cancer. And this idea took off, and we went from 6 million to 11 to 28, 43, 72, 92, and then 120, and just became one of the leading companies in breast cancer. And a lot of specifics in how we did that, and probably don't have time today to go through all of it. And there were a lot of miracles along the way. And, as I tell people all the time, I'd much rather have divine intervention than knowledge any day of the week. And God intervened many times for us when we were confused as to what to do next. But we ended up, Clariant ended up as the number one breast cancer diagnostics company in the United States. We did over 50% of the U.S.'s diagnostic work for breast cancers that were sent out of a community hospital. And so we felt like, at least I did, that my grandmother's legacy had been fulfilled, and she was an amazing woman who touched a lot of people. And Clariant was a blessing, and it was a real opportunity for us to practice servant leadership. And I guess the greatest story of Clariant wasn't selling to GE for $600 million. The greatest story was that same fall when Jeff Immelt actually picked up the phone and called me and wanted to meet for dinner, which is a fun story for another time. But that same fall, we got named as the top place to work in healthcare under $500 million. For those of us that went there, and we're on our knees that first day of Clariant, really giving the company over to God and promising Him we would practice leadership in a way that Jesus would, that really allowed us to do something very unique in our marketplace, which is create a servant leadership environment and be very successful and sustainable in business. So Clariant was a great story, and it's a great company and something that I was very privileged and blessed to be a part of.
Well, you mentioned that there's so many aspects to the story, so many different unique adventures along the way, and I think it's really exciting to know that you'll be talking about your business and vocational journey and your personal spiritual journey, because you're the keynote speaker for the 21st Annual Atlanta High-Tech Prayer Breakfast. Obviously, for many of our listeners, I think many of us have participated in the event. It's now entering its 21st year, which is pretty amazing. It's the marquee event of the high-tech ministries, and of course the largest invitation-only annual networking event in the Atlanta technology community. But without maybe going into any more of those stories, because I'm hoping that it'll help to attract even more than the often standing room capacity that ends up happening at the Cobb Galleria. But give some of our listeners a little idea of why might the audience want to get to the Cobb Galleria on October 4th to hear more.
Well, first off, they should know that I'm the least likely person to be standing up there. So just the fact that God has allowed an ordinary kid from rural Georgia, of course Jonesboro was rural when I was growing up there, 30 years ago, but it's not so rural anymore, I guess. But that has allowed someone like that to live in some very prominent roles in the world of genomics. Mm-hmm. Is one thing. And I think the second thing, too, is, look, we learned a lot in the Human Genome Project that really allows us to understand the reality of an amazing creator and how the human body was designed, and the machinery that drives that machine we call the human body every day is not something that could have evolved. I mean, there's clear mathematics today that refute some of those key theories of evolution, and I think those are some of the key reasons people might want to show up, because it adds some scientific credibility to what we all know as an unyielding and an unfailing faith. But for me as a scientist, these were things that I was curious about growing up, and really I struggled with until I got into the Human Genome Project and realized that things like the chances of 66 million pieces of gene code evolving dramatically into positive phenotypes, that the chances of that happening are 1 × 10⁻⁵. So, this may be a great chance for some of those that haven't experienced Christian apologetics to also get a little dose of that as well, and hopefully go away inspired to stand boldly in their marketplace.
Well, I think there's no debate over the fact of you belonging at that podium. Certainly the past, as far as keynote speakers, have included CTOs and CIOs of Intel, Microsoft, Walmart, even senior executives at Cisco. But each year, 1,600 of the Atlanta technology movers and shakers turn out, and certainly, again, with you being the keynote this year, I'm sure that that's not only going to be the same, but maybe even greater if the opportunity exists to expand that room out a little bit. I want to mention that the mission of the high-tech ministries, to many of our listeners already know, but it is to introduce people in the Atlanta technology community to the life-changing relationship with Jesus Christ. High-tech prayer breakfast keynote speakers, they talk candidly about their business, but they also talk about the real-life impact of their faith as they lived out in the workplace. One thing that you're going to want to do, listeners, and those that are members of TAG, to note that guests at the high-tech prayer breakfast are invited by sponsoring hosts, fellow technology leaders and organizations here in Atlanta, including TAG. So if you're interested in attending and have not received an invitation to this year's event, contact Todd Sorensen, Sorenson, Todd Sorensen, president of the High-Tech Ministries, at todd@hightechministries.org. That's, again, todd@hightechministries.org. Ronnie, what an exciting opportunity. God's blessed you with a great, a sad situation, but one that inspired you to not only, as we mentioned before, become a successful businessman, but obviously impact many, many lives with the work that you do, and now also impacting lives with the faithful story of your career. So thank you so much for, number one, taking time out of your busy schedule to join us today, but equally as important, congratulations on being the keynote speaker for the upcoming event. Again, that's October 4th. And thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to join us today on Tech Talk.
Well, Frank, thank you so much. I'm humbled and honored to be there, and I look forward to seeing and meeting most of you guys on October the 4th.